Alright, this is a 12-chamber pump. It's a LymphaPress Max pump. I'm going to show you how to correctly adjust the pressure setting on this pump. What you want to do in order to adjust the pressure setting is locate the power button on the back of the pump. It's right here, but do not turn it on yet. You also want to locate this orange start-stop button on the front of the pump. In order to enter set mode on this pump, you need to hold this button in, then flip the power button on. Come back to the display. You'll see some words. Once it says wait on the display, it's okay to let go of the orange button. So you let go and we've entered set mode. As you can see here, there's a word set flashing at the top. That's how you know you're in set mode. What you'll notice is there's 3 different pressure protocols. You can see you should be able to see the settings here. Let me slide it a little closer. 3 different pressure protocols. You'll see that they're at different settings. This is the pressure setting for the most distal region of the pump. Now, it's important to understand that in a 12-chamber pump, there are 12 chambers in the sleeve which will inflate with air. Those 12 chambers are broken into 3 different categories of 4 chambers apiece. The first 4 chambers are in the most distal part of the sleeve, which is distal meaning farthest from your heart. So this will be your foot and ankle area. That's where the first 4 chambers are. As you move up the leg towards the calf, you have the medial section, which medial or middle for the next 4 chambers of the pump. And then as you get around the knee and the thigh, you've got the proximal chambers. There's 4 more chambers up there, which are controlled by this knob. Proximal meaning closest to the heart. For our purposes, the only one you really need to worry about is the distal region. And the reason for that is because this pump is designed so that it's impossible for there to be more pressure in either one of these 2 regions than there is in this region. Accordingly, it's impossible for the proximal setting to have more pressure than the medial setting. And the reason for that is because we want the most pressure the highest pressure to be at the most distal region of the leg. And then as you move up the leg, it reduces in pressure a little bit, marginally, in order to encourage evacuation of the fluid from the patient's extremities. So for our purposes, you just want to make sure that the distal setting is set to the prescribed pressure. And as you do that, we're going to recognize that these will kind of fall in line. Now, you can see that this pump is set right now at 48 millimeters of mercury. That is not a typical pressure setting that will be prescribed by a doctor. We see a lot of 40, 45. So when you get to the patient's home, if the pressure setting is for 45, you're going to need to make a slight adjustment here to get that to 45. It's right now fluctuating between 47 and 48. So here's how you change it to 45. Simply go to the distal button here, the distal knob, find the locking mechanism, and push it down. When this is not pushed down, you can't make any changes to the knob. It will not turn. So you press this down, and you slowly turn the knob counterclockwise to reduce the pressure setting. As you'll notice, the pressure going down, and it's now at 45. You may have noticed that, jump back to 47. There's 45. So that'll fluctuate a little bit, but you want to make sure it kind of sits at 45. Now this is for a prescription which calls for 45 millimeters of mercury. Notice the medial and proximal are both less than 45. That's going to be consistent. You don't need to worry about adjusting that. They will fall in line where they should. It's meant to be a little bit less pressure in the upper area than in the foot and the distal area. So, if this patient's pressure setting calls for 45 and this pump is ready to go, all you would have to do is press the start-stop button again, and it will enter ready mode. Now, if we were going to adjust this to 40, let's say you received the pump just like this, and the pressure setting, the script called for a pressure setting of 40 millimeters of mercury, you would need to adjust this down to 40. Same thing. Press the locking mechanism and slowly adjust the knob until it reaches a pressure setting of 40 millimeters of mercury. Notice as I do this that the medial and proximal settings are also decreasing, because like I said before, this pump is designed so that these pressures cannot be greater than the distal pressure. Once you have it set to 40, which is what the patient's script calls for, you press this button once again, and it will enter ready mode. At this point, you can put the sleeve on the patient's extremity and begin to run the pump. Now, during the process of running the pump, these figures will fluctuate a little bit. Don't worry about that. As long as you have it set to the proper pressure setting in the set mode, then you'll be good to go. In our scenario here, because there's no, I have a sleeve here, but I don't actually have an extremity in the sleeve, then these won't be close to accurate right now. But if there was an extremity in the sleeve, it would be applying that 40 millimeters of mercury to the most distal part of the patient's extremity. When you're finished running, you just click the orange start-stop button again. You allow it to deflate. It will deflate enough to the point where you can easily remove the sleeve from the patient. And as long as that is spinning, it's still deflating. When it's finished, it will enter ready mode again. And when you're finished, you can then power off the pump. To remove the hose bundle from the pump, all you do is simply press on the top, and it comes right out. Keep in mind, when you are first installing the hose bundle to the pump, you want to identify the arrows on the side of the hose bundle. Make sure they're pointing, facing up, and simply insert it directly into the pump and wait for a click. Not that click. That click. And you're ready to go.